Hello everyone and welcome back to F1 2019. It is time for round 10 of this 21 round season, so just about halfway there. And after coming up just a little bit short in Austria, coming up second place, we lost a little bit ground on the championship lead, but the leader has swapped. Now it's Sergio Perez in the Racing Point in the top spot, and Max Verstappen now has dropped down to second place. But we are still sitting there right in reach of the top spot of the championship, only 13 points back. So to take a peek, looks like that engine development has come through for us, and Silverstone is a track that I enjoy. It just seems to fit my eye, both the high-speed, low-speed corners. I tend to pick up a lot of time on the AI in the Magnussen-Beckett's complex, but let's head off to qualifying and see how we can start off there.
Here we are then, waiting for the green lights to get qualifying underway for the British Grand Prix. This is a track that tends to ask quite a lot of the tyres, both front and rear. So is it fair to say a great deal of management will be needed in order to do well here?
Tyre wear is always something you have to consider to a certain degree. Finding a good car balance that suits the circuit will help prolong the life of the tyre, but it's true that some circuits, such as this one, are more challenging than others. How hard you can push them depends on your strategy and how tight the battle is around you.
Alright, and here we are coming out on the midpoint of the second sector of our second flying lap. We're running a little bit wide there, but checking up just a little bit of a warning. Just trying to put ourselves in a good spot. We're already P2 in Q1 here, and here we are through the Magnussen-Beckett's complex. Very high-speed corners. Now, I am running a slightly higher downforce setup around this track, and it seemed to do pretty well in the practice sessions. I was kind of middle of the pack. I think it was usually between 12th and 13th in the speed traps there. But really, there's so many high-speed corners around this track that I'm able to pick up a lot of my time delta in those high-speed corners and really put ourselves in a good position. But here we are crossing the line. We're going to improve just a little bit there, but we're going to keep P2, only 2/10 back of the top spot. So here we are out at the very end of Q1. We've fallen back to 4th, but we don't really need to hustle it too bad. We're trying to see if we can set another time, but we got out of the pit lane just a little bit behind schedule, so we're not going to be able to start a final flying lap as we are ripped out of control of the car. And we go across P7, but we didn't really need to improve our lap time to get into Q2. So here we are setting ourselves up on finishing up our outlap on these medium tires, getting ready to start flying lap number 1 of Q2. And so we really want to start on these medium tires as much as we can to give us the strategy option around this racetrack. So here we are through the first couple of corners into this nice slow complex. Take a nice wide entry, get a little bit on the throttle, nearly upshift, but then back on the brakes, downshift to second. You get a nice clean exit out of that tight left-hander, then you're flat out for a long way until you are hitting Brooklands. Hit the braking point about 60 to 75 meters. Around that point, dive in 4th gear, then swing it a little bit wide. Got a little wide on the exit there, but you really just want to set yourself up for the exit coming down this back old pit straight here. So now we are about to hit Cops, which can be flat out, but I'm going to have to lift a little bit, running a little bit wide. Medium tires a little bit slippy. And now we're into the strongest part. Magnussen-Beckett's for us, and then into the slower corner to exit out and back on the power. So it's really just a matter of hanging out for those high-speed corners, using the downforce as much as possible. We are very consistently setting purple sectors through Sector 2, which is pretty much all high-speed corners, which we would expect running the this high downforce setup. So a little bit of a rear lockup you could hear into that braking zone, but out nice and cleanly, and just kind of balance the car, don't let it over rotate across the line, and we go 3rd fastest at the moment. And so here we are out at the tail end of Q2 now, just kind of putting the last laps in and really mess the last corners up, spin the tires up like crazy, so definitely not going to improve. But we're sitting P5 at the moment, so we're going to go ahead and cross the line and see if anybody else sets any remaining times. P8 coming through, so just in perfect shape to get ourselves into the top 10 shootout. So here we are Third qualifying, now we are out on the soft tires. We had an extra set of soft tires thanks to making it through on the first set of the tires in Q1, not having to use any soft tires in Q2. So that gives us something extra to work with. So we're going out for an early banker lap on the softs to see what we can do. And then we'll switch to a totally fresh set and go for a faster lap at the very end after the track has rubbered in a little bit more. See if any track evolution has taken place. But here we are early on. It says we are it says we're third at the moment. It doesn't look like anybody has actually set a time yet. It's just that we're the third car out on the track. A couple cars behind us. It looks like a Alfa Romeo, maybe a Ferrari. Can't really tell that red quite from here. And that pale blue. Not quite as pale as the Williams blue, but the pale blue of a Toro Rosso behind as well. You see just how much speed we carry through this complex. Barely, not even fully lifting off the throttle, just letting the loss of speed from the change of direction dictate our downshifts. There you go, another purple sector, number 2 there. So Leclerc goes fastest overall, but we are almost a full 10th up on what his time was through sector 2. So we have a good opportunity to put ourselves up fighting for pole position here this time. So slow it down for this final chicane. Get on the throttle nice and early. Carry that speed through this last corner. Little out of sorts coming over the bump. Caught a little bit of that sausage curve on the inside, but we still managed to set the fastest lap of the session. So here we are out. Jump ahead to the end of the session. Checkered flag is waved. We've fallen back to P4 at the moment, but we are almost a full half-second up over our previous best time, and a great exit coming down this straightaway. Let's see here, almost 4/10ths up on Hamilton's best time, 0.378, and almost a full half-second up on ARPA's time. So that's kind of the mark we're looking to hit, a good solid exit out of Stowe, and now we just have to be nice and tidy through these last couple of corners, not unsettle the car too much over these sausage curbs. Good exit into the final corner, pick up almost 6/10ths as we cross the line. Is that going to be enough to put us into P1? It is. So we are on pole for our home race, and like I said, it's a circuit that really just suits my eye and fits well nice for us.
It's time to remind ourselves of our top 3. Oldtimer, Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. With qualifying complete, all that remains is the main event. We'll be live and uninterrupted for the Grand Prix tomorrow, so make sure you join us then.
Very nice. George Russell, P7, got his way into Q3 and just barely out-qualified Max Verstappen. And also, taking a look, no Sergio Perez in the top 10. So that's going to give us a good opportunity. He's probably going to have to fight through the field.
The pain of parting is nothing to the joy of meeting again. And how joyous indeed it is to be back at Silverstone once more for the British Grand Prix. The queues to get in this morning extended miles back down the A43, such is the enthusiasm for Formula One in this country. With good opportunities to overtake at the end of the Wellington and Hangar Straights, there's a lot of potential for close action around the 3.6 miles of the Silverstone circuit. With 18 corners and average lap speeds of around 145 miles per hour, it's also one of the longest and quickest circuits on the calendar. Anthony Davidson, a very warm welcome to you as you join me in the commentary box for today's event. Let's talk about Oldtimer. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
It's been a really solid year so far. There have been some incredible standout performances, but what's really impressed me has been the consistency. With this kind of form, I'm expecting another great race today.
It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Oldtimer lines up on pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Vettel, Norris, Valtteri Bottas, and Leclerc, Russell, Verstappen, Weber and Devon Butler, Giovinazzi, Sainz, Pierre Gasly and Stroll, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Kimi Raikkonen and Sergio Perez. Grosjean and Alexander Albon picks up the last spot on the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
You've done well to put it on pole, but we've still got work to do. Trying to cover the inside line off the start.
I'm thinking we're probably going to lose the position off the start just because I'm still not that great at starts in the race, and I tend to get overtaken by at least 1 or 2 cars. But Sergio Perez starting 18th, way down the grid, which is kind of impressive. Didn't seem like he had any grid penalties, so something must have just gone horribly wrong for him in Q1 there. So we are going to go ahead and go with our traditional mediums onto soft strategy. It looks like that'll probably be the inverse of what a lot of other cars in the top 10 are running, going soft onto the medium. So let's see if we can cover some positions at the start here as the lights go out. A little bit of wheel spin, getting out of first gear there. Hamilton pulling up alongside, getting kind of ahead. We've got Norris kind of diving side by side with us, so just off the rear end, but we're able to manage to keep P2 off the start as we get into the first real heavy braking zone. So now it's just a matter of kind of settling in, letting our medium tires warm up. I'm fairly confident in my pace over Lewis Hamilton compared to what our qualifying was, but Norris is in the slipstream. He's going to have a look down the inside of us. We're going to try and leave him a little bit of space, but he turns kind of into us. He doesn't get his nose around, and you can see him get collected in the background. If you look at the bottom left mini-map, that orange dot falling all the way to last place. So he kind of lunged up the inside. We gave him the space on it, but he just made a huge mistake. And luckily for us also, that creates a huge gap to the cars behind. They have fallen back because they've had to slow down to avoid an incident with the spinning Lando Norris. So now it's a 2-man breakaway early in the stages of this race. As you can see, the amount of time we kind of pick up on Hamilton through the S sections there. Purple in that sector, but we are still warming up these medium tires. So at this phase of the race, my goal here is to manage my ERS and fuel loads just to kind of stay within 1 second of Lewis here, and then try and pounce once DRS is available for us. Well, we'll see what the gap is behind as we cross the start-finish line here. We're 8 tenths back of Lewis, but a good 2.6 seconds back is the following pack and that huge train. So we've definitely got ourselves a little bit of clear air to work with. Not really going to be under threat unless Hamilton's pace really drops off, because we seem to be holding position with him just fine in these early stages. Still running in the overtake mode for ERS. We're going to turn down to high right now as we start to get into the mid 60% of our energy load here. Now it's going to be very important for us running this slightly higher downforce. If we're going to be making some overtakes on track here, we're going to need to set ourselves up with good corner exits. We're not really going to be able to reel them in the DRS zones on pure straight line speed alone. So it really comes down to, especially once you come out and hit the DRS zone on the back stretch here, that's probably going to be our best overtaking opportunity, because we gain a ton of time, as you can see, through the Magnussen-Beckett's complex. Only 6 tenths down after being 8 tenths down at the last sector split. So we're able to pick up quite a bit of ground and then catch some slipstream, catch some DRS once it's enabled, and that'll allow us to really, really attack Lewis Hamilton in front of us. And get that nice low shot off the front wing as we close up on the gearbox through this final slower sector, get the throttle down nice and early and get to the apex and shoot ourselves across the start-finish line. Really, really high-speed corners. You can see the way the car just kind of dances around those almost flat-out corners, utilizing all the downforce sticking us to the track there. Just a teeny bit of lockup into the slow corners there, but we're back on the throttle. DRS is now enabled for us. You see that rear wing pop open as we cross that line. We're not really in an attack position for Lewis at this point, so we're going to use that DRS to keep ourselves in touch while being able to turn fuel and ERS modes down. So that's really going to be kind of a position that we're going to take, is kind of conserve. Let him break through the air in front of us. We've got extra tire life, so it's not too worried about the little bit of a lack of downforce thanks to the dirty air causing excess tire wear, because we're going to be running longer than him regardless. We're going to get ourselves some laps of clean air. But you can see we're just right up behind him through that S section, carry the speed out to the exit, and then boom, DRS is open. Let's see if we can make a move on him here. Closing up, using that slipstream, look to the inside on the brakes. He slots very closely inside. We're a little bit deep on the brake zone though, so he's slipping back up the inside. but we managed to just hold him off and take over the lead of the race. But now he is going to have the slipstream and DRS on us in the next couple of times here, so we'll see if he's able to fight his way back. And he's already having a look into turn 1. Dangerous spot to do it. We managed to just hang around the outside, give him enough space to not make an incident happen there. But that was definitely nerve-wracking. Not as bad as the 3-wide turn that we had at France 2 weeks ago. But you see, little oversteer getting out of that slow corner, and so he's going to have DRS. He's going to have slipstream. He's just going to go kind of shooting past us. So we're going to crank the energy down to the medium, start recharging some of that battery, and just kind of hold station for a second after that mistake. Let our rear tires cool back down. We don't want to over push them, especially with the amount of high-speed corners there are. Don't want to kind of lean into them too much. So we're just going to kind of keep an eye on these sector splits right now as we're recharging the battery. But you can see, not losing really any ground as we are low on the throttle. We're going to get out of the throttle early through this complex so we don't run into the back of Lewis here. A little bit wide on that exit, just kind of got in the dirty air, kind of threw off our balance, and that's going to allow him to open up a little bit of a gap down the back straight into Stowe. Still 2.3 seconds ahead of the third place group and that train that seems to have a little bit of a fight developing for third place. That looks like a pale white dot of George Russell fighting in fourth place right now, so it looks like he's made up a couple of positions on the start, and we'll see where Lando Norris kind of has slotted out. I'm sure that other orange dot far back is Carlos Sainz. Norris had to basically, since it was an early turn incident, have to wait for the entire field to pass before being able to rejoin safely. But through this slow corner, very careful to get the throttle down and not light up those rear tires. Open the DRS and kind of close up a little bit more. We'll see how far back we are at this Sector 1 split. 0.7 back, so we're holding our spot pretty nicely. 2.4 back of Vettel. And the other thing I'm kind of thinking, in the early stages, I'm thinking let's get in front and try and make a run, get ourselves a bit of a gap, as you see just before the camera cut. Turn the ERS back up to stage 4 overtake of 4 of 5, so we're in a pretty high mode. And that's because we're close enough, considering an attack out of the S's and then into Stowe down the back straight. So we get a pretty good run out of the last corner there. Pop open that DRS and let's get a run in the slipstream. So you're lunge down to the inside, pull alongside, easily clear past him. Better on our braking point this time, not overshooting it. And that's going to give us an opportunity. So now we need to try and gain as much gap as we can. Try and get outside of the 1 second range and really hustle the car to get him out of DRS. I think once we can clear Lewis Hamilton into DRS zones, we'll be good. But here he is. He's making another move into turn 1, side by side, turn 2, just barely holding position in front. Another scary moment. He slots back in for the braking zone. The other thing is, if we keep fighting, that's going to allow that third place group to catch up to us. So really, we need to just kind of settle down. He's going to have DRS on us. He's nice and close. We're going to kind of squeeze him a little bit to the inside before we move back out to the braking point. Make him just a little bit uncomfortable just behind as we cross the sector split. We are using a lot of energy to kind of fight back with him, but we are pretty still full stored up on the battery, so we're going to turn stuff back down to high at this stage. Now, I think we are starting to experience some wear on our MGUK, so we are not quite recharging enough. The MGUK being the kinetic part of the motor generator unit, so that one is what recovers our electrical energy based on the regenerative braking on the rear axle there. So that's what gives the big chunks of energy in those braking zones. So you can see we've now turned the fuel mixture down to the lean mix. We're going to see if we can stick with him running this lean fuel mixture and this medium ERS. If we can stay inside that DRS zone and keeping up using that open rear wing, we can really set ourselves up for a good position, have a ton of extra fuel and extra electrical energy for when we do make our attacking move to crank everything way up to 11 and try and make a run out. So here we are, jumped ahead, lap 8, going ahead and looking to the inside again on Lewis Hamilton. We've saved almost a full lap of extra fuel. and a good 70% of electrical energy. So we are going to kind of try and set ourselves up to run away from him once again. It looks like George Russell has made his way into the podium positions as well, so he's having a pretty good race from P7. We go set the new fastest lap of the race. Hamilton 0.3 behind us at the line. We've got the fuel mixture turned up to the rich mix. Let me see if we can open up just a teeny bit of breathing space into these corners so he doesn't attack us down this next DRS straight. So get on the throttle nice and smoothly. Try and get those rear tires hooked up. See if this extra fuel mix will run us down the straight. We've got a little bit of air behind us. And this time we hit the braking zone, the breathing space braking zone, without him getting by us. So we're going to go ahead and keep it in that rich fuel mixture. And now is where I'm thinking it's time to run away. It's time to try and open up a more than 1 second gap, because he really can't hang with me once I get outside of that 1 second. So we're going to jump a long way ahead. Lap 15, everybody kind of dove in for their pit stops. We've got a 28-second gap to Lewis Hamilton after he's made his pit stops and kind of the delta we've been able to put up. So we'll see if that's going to be enough to come out back in the lead. I mean, it's a very long, very slow pit straight here that you'll see from Silverstone as we try and kind of check our times at each delta. 28.0, so we're kind of losing a teeny bit of ground, but I mean, only 0.3 down on our best lap, so tire life has been pretty good on this medium stint. And so turning up the fuel mixture to rich just a little bit more, try and burn a little bit of extra fuel, a little bit of extra pace, try and make as much of a gap as I possibly can to see if we can't build an entire pit stop's worth of gap between first and second, so we don't have to fight our way back past him and really have a pretty casual finish of this race. Just kind of run on the soft tires until the end. That's the other benefit. Even if we do come out behind, we are on the faster tire compound, so we are going to be able to race him pretty well. So he's already put in a fair number of laps on those medium tires. Obviously, we've put in a lot of laps on our medium tire, but we are coming in for the quick soft tires. So here we are, crossing the pit limiter line, and now the agonizing drive through the pit lane. 37 miles an hour, another slow pit lane. Take the right turn, you can start to see the pit stalls, and now we are almost at the far end of the pit lane is where our pit stall is, and it's just absolute agony getting to the end here. So in, quick tire change, back out, a nice smooth stop, and now you can see we've already spent over 30 seconds in the pit lane. I'm going to keep an eye on that map. Here he comes across the start finish line. Pit limiter off, get up the hill, and he just gets out ahead of us. Valtteri Bottas takes away the fastest lap in the process, but man, we spent over 30 seconds in the pit lane. That's a huge time loss. Usually in a lot of other racetracks, you're tending to lose 22 to 24 seconds in the pit stop system, but now it's time for us to try and chase Hamilton down. 10 laps left to go in this race, but I'm feeling pretty confident. We were 0.8 down at that last split, so within the DRS range, and you can see just how much more hooked up these soft tires are around these corners. I mean, really reeled him in through the Brooklands complex there, and then that slow right here, and now you can really see us hustle it through Cops flat out, use as much racetrack as we can, and now is really where we're going to close him up through Maggots and Beckett's, where we have not only the downforce advantage but also the tire advantage. So we'll see if this is going to be one where we've set ourselves up well enough. DRS is open. Looks like we might have run a little bit wide on that exit. We're trying to catch the slipstream. Not quite close enough to make an attack, so we're going to turn things down and just kind of hold station. Really coming out of that last DRS zone is our best overtaking opportunity. So we're going to try and conserve the tires a little bit through the early stages of this lap and set ourselves up for that classic attack that we've had, getting that position off him. And again, saving fuel, saving electrical energy. So once we do make that move, we can keep everything turned way up and try and build a gap before we hit that first DRS zone. And if we can pull that off, we should be able to just cruise our way around to victory. So here we are, getting on the throttle, about to hit that left-hander, open up the first DRS zone. Little ways back because we've kept some stuff turned down, not going to be an attacking position for us, but It's just a matter of getting a good run through these next few corners and, of course, through the S's leading into the back straight. That's going to be our real attack point at Lewis Hamilton. So here we are, setting ourselves up, about to come through Copse, keeping the pedal completely to the metal on these fresh soft tires. You see, it caused us to run wide, but that's going to carry a lot of extra speed. It's just a matter of nailing the last corner in this complex. You can see how much ground Hamilton is losing there. We've definitely hooked up that last quarter pretty well. So DRS is open. We're in the slipstream. Hot lap ERS, rich fuel mix, send it right past him. And then a little wide on the braking zone, but we're going to carry a lot of extra speed, and we're going to keep everything turned up as we head through Sector 1 and the last bit of Sector 3 of this lap. Now, if we can beat him to turn 1, we set the new fastest lap. He's tucked into the slipstream, so he's gaining a little bit of ground. Swing wide, dive into turn 1 to keep the momentum up, and easy flat through turn 2. Hard on the brakes for turns 3, and then out to turn 4. Here we are. Need to nail this exit. No wheel spin, no oversteer, so we can really hold him off as he's going to have DRS through this next sector. So here he is, kind of closing up on us, but we've got everything turned up. We hit the braking zone just ahead of him, and he is not going to be able to reel us in, and now it's going to be a long time before he's going to have that DRS to try and chase us down. So this is the moment that we really are going to open up the lead of this race, and now it becomes a matter of managing the gap to him behind, keeping him out of that 1 second DRS range, but while also keeping these soft tires alive. Now, we don't want to try and keep hustling and setting fastest lap after fastest lap. That's just going to be a recipe for dead tires in 3 laps, and his mediums really coming into their own. So really, it's just going to come down to watching these sector splits and keeping him outside of 1 second while not pushing these tires too hard. We're not going to be driving them to the absolute limit once we're outside of that 1 second mark. Here are breaking into the chicane and the final complex of corners here. Get on the throttle nicely, smoothly through that flat right-hander, and that should give us a little bit more than a second gap to Lewis Hamilton, so we should, I think, have cleared him. So here we are, hopping ahead, lap 24 of 26. We've opened up quite the gap to him. I think you just saw it on the screen there. 7 seconds of gap to position number 2 there, I believe. Or was that position 2 to 3? No, that was positions 2 to 3. That was Hamilton to Leclerc. We've got about 3.4 seconds on him, and 2 laps left to go here. Yeah, okay, so yeah, 7.6 seconds to Leclerc. It looks like George Russell is kind of falling off, and oh, there's yellow flags behind. What's going on there? Looks like a blue dot slowing down. Is that a Red Bull? It's a Max Verstappen, so just ahead of us in the championship, and he's got a DNF to deal with now, and it looks like we're on for 25, maybe even 26 points as we're holding the fastest lap at the moment. Looks like, according to the minimap, George Russell's making an attack on Charles Leclerc just behind. So let's see if we can get a double podium for Williams for the first time in our career mode here. You see, carrying a lot less speed through Copse that time, having to downshift into 7th. And we are using quite a bit of the electrical energy to keep that gap at around 3 seconds to Lewis Hamilton. Only 30% left in the battery. About 0.6 down on our best lap overall, so he is going to have the opportunity to kind of reel us in, and we're going to go ahead and turn the electrical energy down and try and conserve as much energy as we can. Really, even if Lewis closes down to, you know, the 1.5 seconds, if we lose a bunch of time to him over this last lap, we're going to be saving a ton of electrical energy. And luckily, even though Verstappen DNF'd and we're coming through the yellow flag zone, no safety car to extract him. He was well off the racing line. Was very concerned about the race finishing under safety car. I mean, it wouldn't have bothered me, but it would have been just kind of boring. But now you can see we're turning up the engine just a little bit, not enough to really stress it hard. We're getting that electrical deployment out. We'll see where what our gap is to Hamilton at the Sector 2 split, or Sector 1 split there, so 3.1, so holding steady pretty solidly there. But all in all, this race was not particularly dangerous or exciting. We started P1, Really only had to make 2 overtakes over the entire course of the race to take over the lead both times. About the only real time I pushed and really stressed on the track was the series of laps after Hamilton had come into pit and before we had to try and build the gap. But otherwise, it was very much driving within the car's capabilities. I didn't really have to hustle it too bad. It just seems like this course kind of suits me. I just like the feel of it. And here we are hitting the chicane for the last time. Just need to not stamp on the throttle, not spin the car out, get on the throttle nice and smoothly. And here we are across the line for another win this season.
Great job. You've done everything we wanted today.
It's been coming for a while, this one. What an excellent win for Williams. What do you think it was, Ant, that gave them the edge over the competition today?
Well, I know it's a bit of a boring answer, but the truth is they simply had the best speed package on the day, and a driver who knows how to take advantage of that. It doesn't matter how much time you spend poring over the stats and planning strategies if you can't keep the pace, and our winner today showed they could do both.
It looks like it's time once again to hand out the silverware as the successful drivers make their way to the podium. It was a gritty performance today by Williams, and they've got the race win to prove it. And after this round of the World Championship, here's how things look in the Drivers' Table. Oldtimer takes over the lead of the Drivers' Championship. Now, let's discuss, Ant. Who would you say is a contender for Driver of the Day?
Well, you can't fault anything that Sergio Perez did out on the track today. He drove flawlessly, making him an easy pick.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. Williams become the new championship leaders. There was also a strong showing from the Mercedes team today as they make their way up the standings. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One.
So Perez with a great drive from the back of the field up to finish P7, but it's not quite enough to hold us off as we got the full 26 points thanks to the fastest lap as well. And George Russell finishing just off the podium, only about 3/10 back of Leclerc. And that's really going to contribute to the Constructors' Championship. Finally, George Russell kind of throwing his weight in there. I mean, we have 151 of our 170-something points. But George Russell picking up 12 points for himself there. So a good day for him.
It doesn't get much better than a win at this track, does it?
No, it really doesn't, especially since it's our own team's track. And I mean, I really have to give props to the aerodynamic team. I mean, really being able to stick to the track was the difference.
What do you think made the difference between this weekend and last weekend?
I mean, got to go with improvements to the aero package. I mean, it's really just makes this track work.
You're leading the championship. Are you happy to be there or feeling the pressure?
I'm glad to be up there, but it's no time to get complacent. Every race is going to be a challenge, and we're about to hit Germany and Hungary, where I typically haven't been particularly great.
Do you think your rival learned from his battle with you?
I mean, drivers, we're consistently learning from each other, and so we're both getting a little better. But we didn't really battle him today.
Great.
He's just
well, that's
my teammate.
Everything.
But here we are back in the garage, kind of taking our haul of R&D points, and thankfully we got our team goal completed. That was definitely going to be a tough one. To score 40 Drivers' Championship points in 2 races, it required a win and a second to do it, basically. I think you might have been able to get away with it with a win in third. But we managed to get that locked in, so an extra good chunk of R&D points for us to work forward on.
Just wanted to say congrats on the podium. It's thoroughly deserved. We were sweating those last few laps on the pit wall, but you brought it home.
Sweating? I had like a 4-second lead, Jeff. Come on, if you're sweating about that, I can't even imagine what's going to happen to you if I'm trying to win a close race where it's like within 1/10 of a second. Might have a heart attack and die. But that being said, let's hop into R&D. Let's make some adjustments. We're still kind of at the top of the table. Right now, looks like we have one major development should be ready in the aero package coming up. So we are going to be able to purchase a 2-week package to keep that new developments coming every week system kind of going. Taking a look at the engine system, I think we're going to go ahead and go there, kind of lean into that. A lot of the chassis developments at this point are braking performance enhancements rather than tire wear or suspension adjustments. They're pretty much just braking, which I haven't typically had really any problem with. The braking I've been able to work right up to the limit pretty well, and our braking performance is pretty good overall. So I'm not too worried about that. I want to keep the engine developing. I want to keep the aero developing for sure. But you can see it's time to swap out that MGUK. It's in the 60%. I mean, it's about time to retire that. The other one we've got 55%, so hopefully we can make that work through Germany and Hungary, because I'd really like to do our traditional tactic of a totally fresh set of engine components for Monza, which is or Belgium and Monza, which is a couple more races down the schedule. So just kind of getting some new-ish components in there, retiring some of the older, more worn bits, and keeping that engine running fresh. So probably going to look to take a grid penalty either at Germany or Hungary. Hungary's a place where I typically have better race pace than my qualifying pace, so it might save tires and go with like a aggressive two-stopper and try and cut through the field in that one. But that is going to be a couple more weeks. We're actually headed to Germany next. So our engine manufacturer's home race as opposed to our team's home race, which so far on the career, we've checked the boxes now of my driver's home race, the USA. We took that in Season 2. And now we've got a home race win for our team, Williams, in England. So let's see if we can get that third home race, the engine supplier's home race, and see if we can get all three of those in the bag. But thank you guys for joining me for this race, and thank you for joining me along this exciting championship run. I will catch y'all next time in Germany. Peace.